Hey, yeah, Ian here from the Guitar Studio, and today we're having a look at this thing, the wonderful sounding Supro Comet. It's a 14 watt switchable down to 6 watt all valve amplifier, and it really is quite a cool sounding bit of kit. Okay, so let's have a look at the features of this thing. Well, for a start, it's got this awesome looking white band on it, which I really love, and this very cool carry handle that makes you feel like you're carrying a rather heavy suitcase, an all valve suitcase at that, but really onto the guts of it. So we've got a master volume, which is awesome, but what it does mean is that if you want gain out of it, you got to turn it all the way up. It's 14 watts, switchable down to 6, all valve amplifier. I think I mentioned that. We've got built-in reverb, built-in modulation, which can kind of range from a fairly subtle chorus if you dial it right to a really, really cool, lush sounding and feeling vibrato. It's got one 10-inch speaker in it. It's really just one channel, and we don't have an effects loop, but we do have an external cabinet jack, so you can plug in an external cab. So that's basically the main features that we have rolling out on this thing. So we'll have a talk about the playability. Okay, so playability. With an amp, I suppose, you know, we're really talking about usability, because obviously you're not actually like hands-on playing it. So the usability of this thing, it's a really usable amp, but it does have some specific uses, I think, that it lends itself towards. And the specific use to me, if it were me purchasing this, would be for recording. It's a one-channel amp, master volume, so you have to turn it up all the way if you want gain out of it, which is totally cool in a live situation as well. But I think where this thing really shines is as a recording amp. It's got some spectacular clean sounds. The gain sound on it is not overly saturated, like it's by no means like a really high gain modern type amp, but the vintage, nice, rich, what you would kind of classify as a vintage sound that comes out of this is really awesome when you're dealing with the gain. So if you were to use it live, to me it would be something that you'd be using because you had a really specific sound or use that you were going after. It doesn't have an effects loop, so you're kind of somewhat limited there, and as I said before, it's only one channel, master volume, one tone too, I might add. However, within that, it's not hard to get the sound that you want. It's inherently kind of not brittle, so even when you turn it up all the way, the tone all the way, it doesn't really have a brittle sound, which is really, really kind of cool. So even though you only got one tone control, it's actually very, very usable, very, very usable tones that come out of it. So for me, if I was using it for any number of things, one would be recording. Awesome. I've got some sound clips that I recorded a little bit earlier that I'll play at the end of the video, and the reason I did it that way is because to really get the decent sound out of it, you got to turn the thing up loud, so we did that separately. The other use to me is that if you had a live setup, and don't get me wrong, you could use this as a sole amp live as long as the rest of the band is not too loud, but if you are needing a certain amount of versatility, you've only got one channel, etc., etc. But where it would really shine also is if you had an AB setup or an ABC setup where you're switching between multiple amps. This would be like a fantastic little clean amp, or a fantastic wherever you want to put it amp, really. It's got a lot of tones out that you can get out of it, and they're all good. They all sound good. It's a neat little amp. Okay, so value. This thing at the time of the video, Rock Shop has these for around $2,499, so that's $2,499. So best part of $2.5 grand. Is it value for money? Well, if you're looking for something like this that records exceptionally well, mics up real friendly. One thing I didn't really kind of mention, and in the miking process of this, one thing I found is that it doesn't really have a nasally sound, which is awesome. For anyone who knows what I'm talking about there, that you just can't get rid of certain frequencies, and it has this kind of almost nasally MIDI type of a sound to it. It sounds really open. It's got a really open kind of a fresh sound. It mics up really, really, really easily. I basically slapped the mic in front of it, didn't take much care at all as to where it was placed. It was kind of like just outside the center of the cone, but and got a fairly respectable sound out of it fairly straight away. So value, there's a lot of value in that alone, because if you're trying to record something, it's very frustrating if you haven't got sweet sounding mic capturing abilities coming out of the amp. So how do you put a price on that? But if you're stacking it up against other amps around that price, hey, it depends. It's really going to depend what you're looking for in terms of features. I think where this thing shines, as I said before, is as a recording amp. Personally, for me, for $2,500, you might get something with more functionality, effects, loop, multiple channels, etc. But will it sound as good? That's the question. So it really does come down to what it is that you're going to use it for, and where the value lies within, for you personally, within that equation. Okay, so the sound of this thing. As I said a little bit earlier, some of the sounds that we captured separately, because to get certain tones out of this thing, you really got to turn it up, and speaking and having it loud and bits and pieces is just kind of not as quite as easy as just kind of like setting it up, micing the thing up, capturing the sounds, and then talking about it. So in terms of sound, so this is at a relatively quiet volume. The volume is on not much at all, and it is on 6 watts. There's a little bit of reverb. There's no modulation on it. And the thing that's immediately kind of apparent with it is that, like most good valve amps, is that if I play the note quietly, it's quiet. And if I play it loud, it's loud. Which is which makes it really responsive. Really responsive. It's really, really nice to play. The tone's about all the way up there. If I back that off a bit, it gets a fair bit darker. So but even with the tone, kind of like, about say 3 o'clock, anywhere from sort of like about 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, you got a lot of clarity there, and turn it up all the way, it still doesn't get brittle. So you got a lot of usable range within the tone control itself. Okay, so just to wrap and pack this little review on the Supro Comet, I'm a real big fan of this amp now. I thought it recorded wonderfully, it was really easy to use, minimal fuss with mic placement, etc. As a studio amp, I think the thing's really fantastic. As a specific use amp, it's definitely got its place if you're, depending on how you're going to run it. It really brought to mind for me classic tracks, and some of those tracks or little snippets of I played just a little bit earlier on in the video. Now I'm not sure whether the original artist actually used the Supro on those tracks or not, but it certainly did a really good job of capturing those sounds. It's really easy to use. Like it's not really like you're going to get a bad sound out of it. No matter where you put the tone control, the thing sounds great. So thank you Rockshop for sending it through. Yeah, I've really enjoyed having a play around with this amp. If you'd like to find out more about Guitar Studio, www.guitarstudio.co.nz. You can subscribe by clicking the thing down there, and on Facebook, Guitar Studio NZ.